So this is the final castle of Chapter 1, my 0% gross LTC playthrough. It's also the longest in terms of turn count, being 10 turns longer than the other ones combined. And this isn't really due to a lot of enemies, it's due to, quite frankly, terrible map design. As much as I like the game, it's just trotting through a forest and then one space-wide choke point. However, this is also the most interesting part of this chapter strategically, because it's the only chapter that really differs a large amount on 0% growth, because at the beginning the cavalry rush is the cavalry rush. It's a bit tougher because my units are weaker, but it's still nothing new. But in this part, you have to really think to compensate for the fact that no units are capable of one-rounding the axe users that fill up the choke point. So to help compensate for this, it doesn't deal with it completely. It still slows me down, but throughout the chapter I set it up so that Quan got a fair bit ahead of Sigurd, so that he could come forward and clear out a few enemies before Sigurd got bogged down by them, was actively slowed down by them. And it definitely helped having Quan so far ahead. Some turns were still lost compared to what would happen if I could one round the on-rushing axe users, but I think that this turn loss is inevitable. There isn't much that can be done about it. It can only be reduced. Also, since ID needs to be pairing up with Azel, I unfortunately have to kill Jomka. Jomka would be pretty useful just because a killer bow, continue, charge, and pursuit are all really good skills. He has no problems clearing arenas, so I could promote him. So he'd probably be useful at some parts, at the few parts of the playthrough where infantry is actually relevant, but he wouldn't actually save any turns at any point. Like, I know that for sure. He'd just make a few strategies more reliable, so it's not worth bringing Ideen up here and making it impossible to pair with Azel on time. So I take as much advantage of the fact that Sigurd has a javelin as possible to clear these units out, as well as continue, and javelins obviously to kill the enemies as quickly as possible. The good thing is that although he's lance using and means he should be in trouble during these early game phases, within the woods things are actually pretty good for Quan, because he gets a plus 20 of it, because the enemies have low hit to begin with. He gets a plus 20 evade boost from the forest, a plus 10% evade boost from Sigurd's leadership, and a plus 10% bonus from being near his lover. So it all added up makes it so that he's surprisingly dodgy for a lance user against axe users, which means that these strategies, though somewhat unreliable, they aren't super unreliable. Some RNG abuse has to be done, but it's quite minimal. Very few things with absolutely tiny odds, although I do rig a lot of continues and some lover crits later on, just because otherwise it would be, and some hits also, because the hit rates with javelins aren't perfect. They're pretty inaccurate weapons, and weigh you down a lot, which is another difference between this map on 0% growths and in a normal playthrough. In a normal playthrough, the archers near the top are guarding Verdane Castle are very easy to deal with, simply because if Sigurd has a speed ring and procs speed once or twice, which he definitely will, he'll get tons of levels and his growth is pretty good, then he's capable of one-rounding all of the archers near Verdane Castle, which makes it very easy. However, in this playthrough, he doesn't get speed procs, so he can't double them, and as such they really get in his way, because he has no easy way to kill all of them quickly, and he doesn't have a lot of time. And furthermore, in a normal playthrough, he could one-round Sandino, most likely, but he needs Quan to also attack the boss if he wants to seize on the same turn he attacks, all of which make it so that a different solution is needed. And strangely enough, Daedra, who's about to appear, is that solution that makes the 19 turn still possible. Daedra is widely regarded as somewhat of a joke character in a normal playthrough with growths because she's low movement, low speed, her aura is as heavy as a brick, she disappears quickly, all she's generally useful for is a few staff uses, or you just have to staff spam her if you're doing a ranked playthrough. But I think she's actually, on 0% growth, probably one of the most useful units in this run. Overall, I'd say she probably saves somewhere between 3 and 5 turns during the playthrough as a whole. One here and quite a few later as well. And the main reason for this is, yes, aura weighs like a brick, and yes, she has bad defense, she's slow and all that, but there are some cases where infantry are relevant, and in those she shines because she has prayer and the live skill, which I'll get into why those are that's such a good combination later. But so what I did, sorry about that, still not used to recording, but what's really important about her in this playthrough is that she manages, with her 1 to 2 range, she can deal quite a bit of damage to the archers, and with her low defenses, she can bait them to all attack her, which is good, which means that they won't be blocking the way for Sigurd and Quan, meaning they can just seize. Just a side note, here is one of the parts I have to abuse a sibling critical on Jomka because he's so powerful and against a base Sigurd or Quan, and would kill one of them if I didn't do that. But anyways, the important thing in this chapter is that since she's so frail, she can get all the archers to attack her, meaning they don't end up attacking Sigurd and Quan. And which gets me into the amazing use of one of her skills, which is prayer and live in combination. So prayer means that her evade can get to be simply ridiculous at points, and what this means, if I can knock her down to low HP, low health, and she's on a forest, then she's really going to not get hit, even if her tome weighs so much, which is used a lot in this chapter, you'll see soon. And although she's really slow, I deliberately made it so that Sigurd triggered her spawn event. You can't really see it now, but back when the whole choke point was simply full of axe users, so she spawned all the way on the other side, giving her a good head start on the mounts to compensate for her terrible movement. And so you'll see what I'm going to do with her soon. But essentially, Liv makes it so that she can be knocked into prayer range or near prayer range, and then based on the amount she heals, it can make it possible for her to get knocked further into a further prayer range where her evade goes higher, and so on and so forth. And this proves invaluable here and during chapter 2, which you'll see soon. But her ability to have prayer and the fact that she's powerful enough to knock a good to knock most of an enemy's health off because of her high magic and their low resistance, it makes it so that abusing her prayer skill is very effective. So despite being terrible in a normal playthrough, she finds a very important niche in 0% growths. So here, one of the side objectives is obviously to get a bunch of money for Deuce so that he can dump it all on Lachesis next chapter, so he's doing what parts of the arena he can. I suppose if I really wanted to rig, he could do the next fight, but that much money isn't necessary, and I don't have the patience, so I left it at just 2 fights because it's really enough. So now I'm doing some RNG abuse, and this is actually to make so that Daedra gets hit, because I want her to get hit. as you'll soon see. So she has 26 health, and the archers deal 14 damage to her once you factor in her resistance. So that doesn't seem like it can knock her into prayer range, but as you saw with her live skill, health went back up to 16, which means she'll be knocked down to 2 health by the next attack. And since the AI likes to target low health, frail player units, even if they're never going to hit because of prayer or high evade, it's really convenient actually, because then everyone ends up attacking her, all the archers. So instead of fanning out and blocking Quan and Sigurd's path to the boss, they just all attack and miss Daedra. The reason I have to rig a javelin critical just to make the strategy more reliable at this point, even though it's not strictly needed, because the axe users won't knock Daedra into prayer range. They will straight up kill her. So just has to be on. So now you'll see, and here RNG abuse isn't needed to get people to survive. I skipped it. It's needed so that the pathing the enemies take isn't my way. So as you can see, she got knocked down to 1 health, which means everyone attacks her and none of them hit because prayer is absurd. And because of that, there's now a straight path to the boss. And even though this is a very reliable boss kill strategy, I can't well over 50% chance of success. For some reason, there were a lot of high random numbers here, so I need to RNG abuse a little bit so that Quan could hit. And as you can see here, and now Sigurd to this game. The magic ring going on Sigurd is actually pretty good because it's getting past 19 turns. I think that's the lowest it could go. But it's good having the magic ring passed on to Celis because he's going to use the light brand sometimes and the earth sword in chapter 6. And furthermore, he can also sell it for money when he needs it. And that's just showing the amount of money that Du has, because that's important. And that is chapter 1, completed in 19 turns. I don't think it can go lower on 0% growths. Thank you.